Emma worked as a nurse in the city hospital. Her job involved prepping patients for surgery, taking blood, and handling all the small tasks that helped the doctors. She liked the steady rhythm. It was busy, but never overwhelmed. Strange things rarely happened, until one quiet afternoon, when a man in his 40s walked into her room seeking her expertise. She smiled and motioned toward the chair. "Have a seat," she said kindly. The man returned the smile and sat down, already rolling up his sleeve. The man needed some blood work done, and Emma was the nurse assigned to take the sample. It was something she did daily, and usually these procedures didn't startle her, but this was different. Emma readied the needle. "Just a small poke," she said. "So, how's your day been?" The man responded cheerfully, chatting as though they were old friends. His words came easily, without hesitation. Emma kept the conversation going while unwrapping the equipment from its sterile casing. They spoke without making eye contact, since Emma had her back turned. They chatted about the weather, traffic, and how the hospital coffee always tasted burnt. Emma laughed and eventually turned with a needle in hand. She liked it when patients were talkative. It made everything easier. But when she turned back to face him, her eyes landed on something unexpected, something that instantly made her freeze. It was small, but it made a big impact on her. It was a tattoo placed on the inside of his left upper arm, just above the elbow. A series of numbers inked in neat black letters. 1936-122. Emma paused for a second, startled. Her hand hovered in midair. A flicker of recognition stirred inside her, like dust being shaken off an old memory. She didn't know why, but the number looked familiar. She blinked, trying to stay calm. "Interesting tattoo," she said lightly, trying to sound casual. "What does it mean?" The man's friendly expression disappeared, and his shoulders stiffened. He leaned back slightly and looked at her carefully, as if he was sizing her up. The warmth in his face faded, and after that question, casual small talk was gone from the menu. "It's personal," he said flatly. "Hard to explain." His voice was lower now, a bit sharper. Without waiting, he added something random. "How about the weather, right?" Just to steer the topic elsewhere. Emma didn't interrupt. She understood immediately. The tattoo was off limits. He wasn't going to explain it. His body language made that very clear. The subject was closed. Emma gave a quiet nod and let it go. Not everyone wanted to explain their tattoos. That was fine, would be the normal, rational thought here, but the numbers wouldn't leave her alone. Even after he walked out, they echoed in her mind like a song she couldn't stop humming. 1936-122. The numbers circled through her brain as she invited in another patient. She moved through the rest of her shift like a sleepwalker. She smiled when needed, answered when spoken to, but her thoughts drifted constantly. The numbers repeated in her head. She had seen them before, but where? They were linked to someone or something, but Emma couldn't quite place who or what, only that it was important. Time passed in a blur the rest of the day as Emma's thoughts went back to the tattoo multiple times, giving her tiny hits with each visit. And when the clock hit 5 o'clock, she finally figured out where she knew that tattoo from. Tears flowed down her cheeks the last 5 minutes of her shift as she counted down the seconds until she could leave. When the hospital clock reached 5:30, Emma had already peeled off her gloves, and her jacket was draped over her forearm, ready to be put on. Emma rushed through the exit, past the automatic doors, and hurried into her car. The man's tattoo haunted her. One thought pounded in her head. "I know where to look." She drove home fast, weaving through traffic with urgency. She didn't stop for groceries. Dinner could wait as she tried to make it home in record time. A trip that would normally have taken her well over 30 minutes was now done in just 20. Emma carelessly parked her car in her driveway, unknowingly positioning it at a 45-degree angle, with wheels touching grass on both sides. The front door of Emma's house was slammed shut, and her nimble feet made it up to the second floor in a hurry. The attic stairs creaked beneath her as she rushed up. She flicked on the dusty light and scanned the space. That's when Emma's eyes landed on the old wooden cabinet in the corner. It hadn't been touched in years, but today it called to her. Emma yanked open the cabinet, sending years of untouched dust straight into her face. Emma coughed and swatted away the remaining dust particles to get a good look at the inside of the cabinet's drawer. Inside were worn brown boxes stacked unevenly. She pulled one out and immediately noticed how heavy it was. "This was a stacked era," she whispered. Inside the album were old photos, faded with time. Emma flipped through the pages of black and white photos, then some with sepia tones, all indications that most of these pictures were taken well before her time. She recognized some of them, mostly her grandma, who was her childhood hero growing up. "I loved her so much," she said with a smile, while a tear also reappeared in her eye. It was the photo she was looking for, the one she came up here to find. And apparently, fate wanted her to find it too, because it was the only one that hung loose enough in the album to fall out and meet her touch. Emma's eyes scanned the image. It instantly tugged at her memory, transporting her back to that particular day. In the picture, Emma saw herself as a child. She stuck out her arm and had a brightly colored unicorn tattoo. the kind that came free in ice with certain ice cream or candy. She remembered sticking it on with water and waiting for it to dry. Her grandmother stood beside her, smiling too, and holding out her own arm. And on her skin, something that stopped Emma's breath right in its place. Emma stared at her grandma's tattoo. This one wasn't temporary and wasn't stuck on with water, though. Grandma's tattoo was black and simple, a specific combination of numbers placed right above her forearm, clear as day. 1936-122. The same exact number she saw earlier today with her patient. Every detail seemed to match. Even the dash between the numbers was in the same spot. Emma froze. What were the odds? How could it be the same? It felt impossible. Emma reached into her pocket and pulled out a folded note. She had scribbled the man's tattoo down before she forgot. She unfolded it and placed it next to the photo. This couldn't be a coincidence. This had to mean something. Emma's grandma wasn't around anymore to ask these burning questions anymore, since she passed away well over 20 years ago. But the events that transpired after her death were still fresh in her mind, enough to make this confused nurse wonder what could have happened. There wasn't anything strange or unnatural about Grandma Rose's death, but the strange part occurred when it came time to split up her inheritance. Emma was in her early 30s back then, and she was not entitled to much, so she paid no mind to the amount that was left for her. But she remembered a lot of commotion surrounding her mom's piece of the pie. Grandma's tattoo was very special to her. It referred to the coordinates of her family home, the place where she grew up as a child. Grandma was the only old person Emma knew who had a tattoo, and she always thought it was the coolest thing. Emma squinted her eyes and grew increasingly suspicious of this man by the minute. She needed to find out who he was and why he had that tattoo. There was a reason for him to be that standoffish when asked about the scribblings on his arm, and Emma was getting the feeling that it had to do with the photo she now held in her hand. That's when Emma made the most unprofessional decision of her life. As a registered nurse, she vowed to always uphold patients' privacy. Their personal lives were of no concern to hospital staff. But that was about to be broken for Emma's own very personal reasons. Emma didn't think clearly and got back into her car before she knew it, driving back to her place of work. Emma stored the sample in a sealed container and sent it to the lab for DNA testing. She was nervous about the outcome and speculated multiple times about the result. The waiting time was about 2 weeks, even for hospital staff, with no exceptions. And this waiting time gave Emma the time to reflect on her actions. She had violated doctor-patient confidentiality, which was a terrible thing. 2 weeks crawled by, and by the time the results fell through Emma's mail slot at home, she looked tired and rugged from all the bickering that went on in her head. The envelope hit the floor in her hallway, and within seconds, Emma stood there to pick up the thick paper package. Now we will find out the truth, Edgar, if that's even your real name. During the weeks of waiting for the results, Emma also called her mother to ask her if she knew his name, but a resounding no came back. This man was a mystery to everyone, but he was now undeniably a part of the family. Emma looked up his address in the system, another thing that was highly forbidden for hospital staff. 19 Mill Road Creek in Fairfield, Ohio. That was just a few towns over, not that far. Emma was so caught up with this man and moving forward to find him that her mind didn't contemplate the importance of that address yet. But if she slowed down and paid a little closer attention, she could have already uncovered another piece of the puzzle. Emma started driving toward the GPS address. It was a 40-minute drive until she got there, and the determined nurse was glad she had finally gotten closer to resolving this mystery. She was at least going to his place, and had a chance to look him in the eyes again. The time flew, and before she knew it, she was within 5 minutes of Edgar's home. Emma parked the car about 80 feet from the house to be safe. She stepped out, walked up to the front door, and rang the doorbell. It was the final wait before the man responsible for all this commotion would look her in the eyes once more. Emma tried to suppress her shaky hands, and then the door creaked open, showing Edgar on the other side. "Hi, Emma. I figured you might come by one of these days. So you figured out who I am, have you?" Edgar said the moment he laid eyes on Emma. Emma froze, not knowing what to say. She then broke the silence and stated that she had a theory but wasn't sure. But Edgar invited her inside, promising to tell her everything she wanted to know. They sat down in Edgar's living room. He already had tea boiling and presented her with a hot cup before letting Emma speak. Emma explained that she had done a DNA test with his blood after their exam, all because she had found out about his tattoo and how it was related to her grandmother. "We are related somehow, but I still don't fully know how that's possible." Grandma Rose secretly raised Edgar's mother with her biological father, who eventually became a close friend. She never told her husband, but the love between mother and child wasn't so easily cast away. Every chance she got, she spent time with her daughter and eventually also with Edgar, who became her grandchild after he was born. "I loved Grandma Rose," Edgar said, smiling. "When she passed away, and it was time to split the inheritance, she gave my mother the family home, which comprised the missing part of the inheritance money. We started living there, and I got the tattoo to remember Grandma Rose by. It's indeed the same one she has because we live in the same house that was so dear to our grandma." Rose finally understood now. A smile appeared on her face because Edgar called Rose our grandma. And that was indeed the case. She belonged to both of them. And instead of being upset or angry because this part of Grandma's life was withheld from her, she addressed the situation with understanding and compassion. "I wish I had known you sooner. You seem kind, and I'm betting your mom is too." The two cousins sat in quiet reflection, sipping tea in the home that had tied their lives together long before they ever met. Emma felt the weight of confusion and secrecy lift from her shoulders. The missing inheritance, the strange tattoo, the buried family truth, it all made sense now. She had lost something, yes, but she had also gained someone. As Emma stood to leave, Edgar walked her to the door. "Come by again," he said. "There's more to tell and more to remember." Emma smiled. The mystery had unraveled, but her journey into this new part of her family had only begun. She glanced once more at the tattoo on his arm, then stepped into the fading light, feeling whole for the first time in years.